From the opening frames, David Reich disrupts the comforting narrative of human origins. Not as a woven tapestry, but an erratic genetic patchwork so tangled it hides the real story. This provocative reframing invites us to reconsider everything we've taken for granted about our ancestry. That the prevailing model, built one admixture event at a time, is flawed, improbable, and overdue for a reboot. Reich draws a vivid parallel between our models of human evolution and the old Ptolemaic system of astronomy. Instead of rewriting the map when new evidence appears, we keep adding epicycles, patch upon patch, to preserve an outdated framework. Neanderthals here, Denisovans there, mysterious admixture events layered on top, each treated as an exception rather than a clue. It feels less like discovery and more like damage control, a way of forcing data to fit into a story we refuse to rewrite. But what if the foundation itself is wrong? What if the true shape of our evolutionary history has been hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to step back and see the pattern? The textbook story tells us that modern humans split from Neanderthals and Denisovans some 500,000 years ago. A neat timeline, a clean divergence, an orderly tree of ancestry. But Reich points to something unsettling. By the model's own numbers, this scenario holds only a 5% chance of being true. 5%. That's not a confident framework, it's a warning light flashing on the dashboard. When the odds are this thin, we face a choice. Do we keep patching the model, adding footnotes and exceptions until it collapses under its own weight? Or do we step back, admit the cracks in the story, and dare to imagine a new foundation for the human journey? When we look at the genome, the story begins to fracture. Autosomal DNA whispers of an ancient split, a deep divergence stretching far back in time. Yet the mitochondrial DNA, the maternal line, and the Y chromosome, the paternal line, tell a very different tale. They point not to 500,000 years ago, but to a shared ancestor only 300,000 to 400,000 years in the past. And then there are the Denisovans, whose genetic trail veers off even earlier, perhaps as far back as 700,000 to 1,000,000 years ago. These timelines don't simply disagree. They collide. It's as if the human story is written in several dialects of DNA, each telling us something true, but none of them aligning into a single, simple script. Faced with contradictions, scientists often reach for elegant-sounding fixes. They speak of selective sweeps, of rare genetic drift, of improbable forces shaping the genome. But as Reich reminds us, these explanations are less like discoveries and more like patches. Quick stitches on a fabric already tearing apart. The odds of separate, unlinked regions of DNA all bending to the same selective pressures are vanishingly small. It's like lightning striking not once, but again and again, in the same unlikely spot. And yet, these improbable reconciliations are kept alive, not because the math makes sense, but because the story we've long told feels too precious to abandon. What if the line we've drawn between archaic and modern was never real? Reich dares to suggest that as much as 30 to 70% of Neanderthal DNA may have come from modern humans themselves. If true, the boundary collapses. Neanderthals and modern humans would stand not as separate branches, but as genetic peers, intertwined in ways we never imagined. In that vision, the human story is not a clean ladder, each rung replacing the last, but a braided mesh of shared lives and overlapping legacies. The terms archaic and modern lose their sharpness, and what remains is a humbling truth. We have always been more connected than divided. Ancient DNA is not simply adding detail, it is rewriting the map of our past. Reich's lab alone has sequenced more than 16,000 ancient individuals, pulling voices out of the silence of time. The results are staggering. Entire populations rise, vanish, and reappear in waves of migration and replacement. Take Britain, for example. In just the last 10,000 years, the island saw at least 5 sweeping turnovers of its people. These findings shatter the comforting picture of gradual continuity. They reveal a prehistory far more dynamic, a world where movement, mixture, and transformation were the rule, not the exception. The evidence speaks with startling clarity. Human history is not a tale of pure lines or untouched legacies. Every population is a mosaic, layered with the traces of countless migrations and unions across time. Even the rise of farming, once thought to be the spread of knowledge alone, carried with it the movement of people, their DNA intertwining with those they encountered. What we inherit today is not the blood of a single isolated origin, but the hybrid echoes of countless journeys. Each of us carries within our genome a living archive of mixture, proof that humanity has always been shaped by crossing paths rather than clean divisions. Reich's vision carries an uncanny echo of an idea once pushed to the margins: the multi-regional hypothesis. This theory suggested that Homo erectus, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and modern humans did not evolve in isolation, but as regional threads of one continuous species, linked by the steady weave of gene flow across continents. For decades, it was dismissed as fringe, overshadowed by the out-of-Africa replacement model. But today, the growing weight of genetic evidence gives it new life. Far from discredited, the idea of a braided, interconnected human story now resonates with the DNA itself. Deep time whispering that our past was never simple and never singular. To face the tangle of our origins is not to admit defeat, it is to practice honesty. Reich insists that embracing complexity is not weakness, but strength, because it strips away the illusion of purity that has too often been weaponized. For centuries, myths of pure bloodlines fueled division and oppression. But the genetic record tells a different story. There is no purity, only mixture, only shared ancestry woven through time. By acknowledging this truth, science not only honors evidence, it reclaims human history for all of us. It reminds us that the real legacy of our species is not separation, but connection. Reich's challenge is both bold and unsettling. He calls on us to abandon the patchwork and start fresh. Instead of endlessly bending theory to fit inconvenient data, he urges scientists to let the evidence itself chart the course. This is not a minor adjustment, but a demand for a paradigm shift, a rebuilding of our evolutionary model from the ground up. And even Chris Stringer, long a defender of the strict out-of-Africa replacement, has begun to reconsider. He now admits our ancestry is not a tale of clean replacement, but of entanglement, of admixture, contact, and shared bloodlines. The old narrative is giving way to a more tangled and more truthful human story. This is more than a scientific correction. It is an ethical reckoning. Reich's work reminds us that genetics is not merely about where we come from, but about how we see each other today. By showing that no population is pure, that every lineage is layered with migrations and mixtures, the science itself dismantles the myths of racial purity. It strips away the false narratives used to divide, replacing them with a truth that binds us together. Our shared humanity is written in the code of our DNA, not as isolated lines, but as a global, interwoven story. And in that story lies a powerful antidote to prejudice: unity born from complexity. David Reich doesn't just challenge evolutionary models. He challenges us to rethink the very texture of human history, calling for a new, integrated tapestry rather than outdated patches. Our ancestry is not neat and linear. It's braided, dynamic, and rich with surprises. If you found this exploration compelling and want to dive deeper into the tangled roots and shadows of our prehistoric past, subscribe to the Prehistoric Shadows channel. Join us as we unravel the complex, fascinating web of our human story, one thread at a time.